podcast, Phil.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Bulls Talk Podcast. This is actually the first time we used the different name of the podcast. Before the last few episodes, well, the first four episodes, I've been using the name All Bulls Podcast. And if you don't know yet, the last episode which is I believe is the fourth episode of All Bulls Podcast that I announced that I'm going to change the name of the podcast. Instead of using All Bulls Podcast, I changing the name to the Bulls Talk Podcast, which I think is better name than the All Bulls Podcast. Um, I was thought about to change the name again to Talk Bulls Podcast, but I think the Bulls Talk Podcast sound better. So tell me what you think of the name of this podcast, Bulls Talk Podcast. Give me some feedback. Feel free to post a comment on my YouTube channel or even tweet me on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter, which is PDUH10. And for YouTube channel, it's Bulls Talk. So look for me there for my podcast, because from now on, all the podcasts I'm gonna do for the Bulls Talk podcast will be, as of right now, will be only for YouTube. I will not upload it on SoundCloud anymore unless something changed. I'll let you know. So I wasn't not gonna do the podcast today or at all, or wait till maybe another week or later in the end of this week, but I changed my mind. So I decided to do it, and I want to talk about one of the, well, you can say a major move for the Chicago Bulls, that they plan to sign point guard who is a former All-Star, Rajon Rondo, who played for the Sacramento Kings last season, and in the past other season used to play for the Dallas Mavericks. Major of his career, played for the Boston Celtics. This will be his fourth team in his NBA career, and he's the age of 30. No one, no Bulls fan, no Bulls reporters, no one even expect Rajon Rondo will play for the Chicago Bulls or wear a Chicago Bulls uniform, even though the regular season won't start till late October. But no one thought, including myself, that Rajon Rondo will play for the Chicago Bulls. Basically, we all know that the Chicago Bulls traded Derrick Rose to the New York Knicks few weeks ago, and now they desperately need a point guard, and they found one. They pick up Rajon Rondo. They sign him. Basically, well, according to reports, they signed him for a 2-year contract, which is worth $28 million. But there's reports saying that the second year of the contract will be partial guarantee, meaning it could be like a one year deal after this season, and could let him go after this coming new season. So that's according to the reports, with all numerous reports regarding Rajon Rondo contract. If you ask me what I think of this deal, or what I think about this pickup, pretty. To be honest with you, I'm not too crazy about it. I know the Chicago Bulls, and I say this on my podcast, including this episode, that the Bulls desperately need a point guard. They do. They need a point guard badly. Since traded Derrick Rose, they only have Jose Calderon, Jaren Grant, and Spencer D. Riddle on the depth charts. I feel Spencer D. Riddle at the 2 guard, or should move him at the 2 guard and focus on that position. But which I'm talked about that before in my other episode of this podcast. But Never mind about that. But now they acquire Rajon Rondo, and to be honest with you, it is a low risk, high reward type of situation. But does he really fit under Fred Holbert's system? If you think about it, no, he can't. He's not known as a good outside shooter. For the people who don't know much about his game, about Rajon Rondo game, here's a scouting report for him. But because I have been seeing him play over the years, and keep in mind I have NBA League Pass. I've been following the NBA, so I'm familiar with his game, his strength, and I see him play last season. Um, he's not a good outside shooter. He's not a scorer, but he's a pretty good passer. He can distribute the basketball very well. He will get his teammates involved. He will find an open man. He will give to you. He is a very smart basketball player, high basketball IQ. Um, I mean, he averaged like about last season when he was playing for the Sacramento Kings. He basically averaged almost nearly triple double last season with the Kings, 11, nearly almost 12 points per game, almost 12 assists a game. Okay, let me tell you the stats exactly: 11.9 per game, 11.7 assists per game, and he averaged 6 rebounds per game. Nearly triple double. That's pretty good stats line for Rajon Rondo. Uh, Playing for, this was from last season with the Sacramento Kings. Um, but the reason I say I'm not too crazy about the pickup and it's a risk because he is known for his behavior, bad type of character. He had crashed with many head coaches in his career. He crashed with Doc Rivers when he was with Boston, but not as bad because they have other veterans to keep Rajon Rondo intact, like Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen at that time, the big three, and I can include Kendrick Perkins too. And then since they gone, uh, he was traded to. Well, I'm not sure he was crashing butt heads with Brad Stevens, but I remember when he was playing for under Brad Stevens, which is after the big three was gone and Doc Rivers left coaching to the Clippers right now, currently right now, and when Rondo was still playing for the was playing for the Boston Celtics, Brad Stevens was coaching for him. I remember one time I saw during the timeout that Rondo, when Brad Stevenson tried to talk to these guys during the timeout, Rondo just walked away. That's pretty much what I saw, but I don't see no reports about crashing with him, or no drama compared to the other coaches with Caro. Definitely, man, he's a good coach. When he was traded to the Dallas Mavericks a couple seasons ago, and he crashed. He butt heads with Caro, and his tenure with Dallas Mavericks doesn't last long at all. He's pretty much, what's the nice way to say it? More like a locker room cancer. It's pretty toxic. And then he become a free agent, and then he signed with the Sacramento Kings, played for the Kings just this past season, last season basically. Now, and from what I heard, and I read reports that he did crash, but it's with George Karl, who is another good head coach, but maybe not as badly when compared to crash with Karl in Dallas. But he did crash heads with George Karl. But with Sacramento, they have lots of problems. Anyways, that team is just dysfunctional organized. The whole organization, basically, from top to bottom. So there's many problems, not just Rajon Rondo. To be fair, now, just yesterday, he signed verbal agreement to play for the Chicago Bulls. Um, I don't know how he and Fred Holbert get along, even though they connect, according to a lot of reports. When they met for the interview, I believe it was Saturday or Friday. I believe it was. I think it was Friday when Rajon Rondo met with the Bulls, Chicago Bulls, and that he and Fred Holbert and reports, according to reports, were connect pretty well. So, but we see what happened when the season progresses. It could be a sign of disaster, um, potentially sign of disaster. I I could see that Rondo and Holbert don't get along. Heck, you can even mention Rondo and Jimmy Butler may not get along. They could crash, but and things could be. This is potentially maybe a problem in the locker room for this coming season. I'm afraid that may happen. So hopefully not. We the you already know last season the Chicago Bulls have issues in the locker room behind the closed doors with lots of rumor going on, a lot of reports. The Bulls players, like especially there's maybe beef between Chucky Noah and Jimmy Butler, which I actually think that they actually do have beef. There's been rumors about supposedly Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler have beef, which I don't think they do have actual beef. And then we know a little disconnection between Jimmy Butler and Fred Hoiberg, but not as bad. But now you bring a guy who is known for a locker room, who is a cancer in the locker room, who butt heads with many coaches, especially good head coaches who are better than Fred Hoiberg, with Carl and even Doc Rivers, George Karl, as I mentioned earlier. And now he's going to play under Fred Hoiberg, who is barely going to enter his second season as head coach in the NBA since he was hired as a head coach last year for the Chicago Bulls, and this is his very second year coaching in the professional level. Um, this could be, I will say one thing, this could be a very interesting season, whether it's a good way or a bad way. And this could go either way. This could be a good move. You never know. Rajon Rondo things could work out with Rajon Rondo this season. You never know. But it's the Bulls. It's actually pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? Uncharacteristic. Man, I can't even say that word right now. Uncharacteristic for the Bulls. Signing a guy who is not a high character. The Chicago Bulls known for signing, drafting high character players. High character players, meaning not causing issues, no troublemakers in the locker room. That not causing trouble off the court, behind the scenes, that kind of stuff. Rajon Rondo is known for butting heads for head coaches, and his character is question mark. I think that's the best way to put it. He's known for a locker room cancer, and then that's why a lot of people shocked that the Bulls actually picked Rajon Rondo, despite that they need a point guard, desperately need a point guard. But I rather roll the dice with the point guards we currently have, with Jaren Grant, Jose Calderon, even though he's like about age of 34-year-old, and then go with Spencer Dinwiddie, playing him at the one. Heck, I will even look at some other guys. I even mentioned this on Twitter, to go after this guy's one player who just got waived, or pretty much, yeah, he basically got waived by the Sacramento Kings. His contract he was supposed to be a restricted free agent this summer, but from but from the Kings, they reside their co- his contract, meaning he become an unrestricted free agent. And I'm talking about Seth Curry, who is the brother of Stephen Curry. Curry, um, should the Bulls? Of course, the Bulls could pick him up still, but I prefer to go after him. I'm a big uh, I'm a big supporter of picking up a small forward who is a restricted free agent, Marlies Harkless, who is played for the Portland Trailblazers last season. Um, Someone like Marcus Thornton, or uh, some other free agents, but they, to the Bulls' credit, they gamble. Will it pay off? Who knows? Um, this shouldn't eat up the cap space for the year 2017 for next summer. As long as you can waive Rajon Rondo next summer, from what I learned, from what I heard. So we see. I would talk about those supposedly 2017 plan. Maybe later, if not in this episode, it will be maybe the next episode or so forth. You know what? I'll talk about much more. There are other things I want to talk about, but I want to focus on Rajon Rondo. Um, the one thing, the one there are lot of skeptical with this pickup, and I don't blame Bulls fan, but we gotta see what happens. That's why you play the game, right? Um, how does he fit under Fred Hoiberg though? He's not no like I say, he's not a good shooter. He used to be a good defender, but his defense have been dropped. I see him play the last couple seasons. I see him play his rookie since his rookie season. Um, and he used to be a good defender, but now his defense have been dropped. He's not. He's pretty much relying on gambling too much on the defensive side, try to go for steals. He gambled. He rely on gambling way too much now, and that's gonna be an issue. Yeah, that is going to be an issue for any teams, for any player who rely on gambling way too much, try to go for steals. If you get a steal, great, but once you try to go for a steal and you failed, that's gonna be an issue. That could find a guy who's open for a shot, or maybe an easy layup. That could disrupt your defense. It's one thing to try to become a disruptive defender, going for a steal and get a steal, but it's another when you failed. It's another thing when you rely on too much gambling, and that's what happened with Rajon Rondo. He relied on too much, and that's gonna be an issue with the Bulls, on in terms of team defensively. Um, but he will find an open guy. In the plus side, and there is the plus side. Um, that Rajon Rondo will find an open guy. He is a smart basketball player, like I mentioned, high basketball IQ. He will get his teammates involved. He will find open shooters. If you're open, you better be ready, because he will give it to you. If you open, take a cut to the basket, or go for, or make sure you communicate with Rondo. Good communication, he will give to you for an open basket, or rather, he go for an alley oop and cut to the basket for an easy basket. Boom! It's nice play. But you better be ready, because he will give it to you. He averaged 11 assists per game last season. He can still distribute the basketball very well. So it could be in terms of what you're looking for, a point guard to run the offense, give your teammates foul. He will probably can get Doug McDermott, Nikola Mirotic, even rookie Denzel Valentine involved. Those are three shooters. So they better be ready. They better prepare, and most importantly, they better make their basket. Um, how does Rajon Rondo and Jimmy Butler will fit? They're not gonna fit pretty well. This is not a perfect fit, but in terms of maybe Jimmy Butler cutting into the basket, could, Rondo could pass the ball to him for an easy basket or possible alley oop. So there's that. But we all know that just like Rajon Rondo, Jimmy Butler is not a good outside shooter, especially the three behind the arc. So that's gonna be an issue. So Jimmy Butler better work on that 3-point shots and improve. And that same apply with Rajon Rondo. But even though, to be fair, if I remember correctly, last season when Rajon Rondo played for the Sacramento Kings, I believe he shoot like about what's the percentage behind the 3-point line? Like about 36, almost 36 or 37% behind the arc, which I believe that's his like career high. So he's not known for a good 3-point shooter, but he did shoot behind the arc pretty decent. I would say solid, pretty solid last season. The question is, can he shoot around that range or better? I'm not counting on it, but we see. Who knows? And of course, Rajon Rondo, just like any other player the Bulls have, torn ACL. He had torn his ACL. Excuse me, ACL. What, 2? No, not 2. 3, 4 seasons ago, and recover, come back. Not the same player like he was before, especially on the defensive end. But he's never a good outside shooter, but he still can distribute the ball and is pretty solid rebounder for a point guard. So that's another plus side. But not many Bulls fans are happy about this pickup. You pretty much traded you pretty much traded Derrick Rose, who, by the way, Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler can't work well, not mesh well in the backcourt, because just like Rajon Rondo, Derrick Rose is not a good outside shooter. Jimmy Butler is not a good outside shooter. And you traded Derrick Rose and you pick up Rajon Rondo. Now Rajon Rondo is a better playmaker than Derrick Rose last season, so I give him that. However, they don't work together. On paper, they don't work pretty well. But Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, and now you bring another guy who's not a good shooter. That doesn't make sense. That it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. In my opinion, you're better off keeping Derrick Rose. Let him play for one more season, and his contract is off the book next summer. And if he leaves, he leaves. Sometimes I know I understand that you want to get something in return, but there are sometimes you just let your asset go for nothing. Sometimes it's best to go with that option, if that makes sense. I understand you have to move Derrick Rose. I mentioned this a few episodes on my podcast on this podcast alone. That I understand you get to trade Derrick Rose, you have to move him. I understand that, but you trade him and you sign Rajon Rondo to replace Derrick Rose in terms of short term. That it just doesn't make sense. And the most major concern I have, as I mentioned, is that he could cause problem in the locker room. Bulls already had that issue last season. Now you bring in a guy who's known for having issues with head coaches. And it's been what's the word I'm looking for? A knucklehead? No, being a knucklehead? You decide to bring him in too? And keep in mind too, Garner Foreman stated in the press conference that he wanted to get this team young and athletic. Rajon Rondo is not young. He's about 30-year-old? I believe he's 30-year-old right now. That's not young. And he's not as athletic as he was. Um, so that doesn't really fit the Bulls uh, or the description that Gar Forman mentioned on the press conference. The only thing I can think of regarding why to pick Rajon Rondo up, well, probably a few things. One of those things is probably maybe lure the top free agent superstar next year, which I'm not counting on it. But that's the only way I can think of. Um, another another one I think of is that Jerry Weisendorf, all he care about is making profit, and he wants that playoff revenue. The Bulls missed the playoffs uh, last season. And he wants to make the playoffs, so he will try to get the Bulls competitive. I could talk about that a little bit more, but maybe the next episode or so. Um, Again, I want to focus on Rajon Rondo because this episode I like to call it, and I should say this earlier, since I start this episode, and this is the fifth episode of this podcast, by the way. That I call it the Rajon Rondo special. Nice ring to it, does it? But anyways, it'll be interesting how this progress. Uh, I don't know if the Bulls gonna make trades. Very unlikely, but it's a possibility. Um, there's been rumors about Mike Dudley Jr. might be on the trade. The Miami Heat are interested in trading for him if they can't get getting any players on the free agents pool they are targeting, and does it look like they're getting who they want to sign with them. So we'll see about that. I'm going off the subject again. So uh, it's just it's gonna be awkward. It's gonna be actually I want to say awkward. Awkward is not the right word to use. It's gonna be pretty weird watching Rajon Rondo not only play for the Chicago Bulls but wear the Chicago Bulls uniform. Just remember way back in I believe 2009 when the Chicago Bulls played the Boston Celtics in the NBA playoffs. When Derros was a rookie at that time, and you remember that it was what game was it? Game 3 or game 4? I can't remember. But I remember it was in Chicago at the United Center. Uh, it was the 2009 NBA playoffs. That one of those times that Rajon Rondo like pushed Kurt Heinrich out to the I believe to the table close to the outbounds, and then that pissed Kurt Heinrich off. Got into Rajon Rondo. Of course, at the time, Finny Del Negro was the head coach for the Chicago Bulls, and Doc Rivers was head coach for the Boston Celtics. And you remember Boston Celtics was the defending NBA champions at that time. But anyways, they were got into a heated, I remember perfectly well. The referee holding Finny Del Negro holding Kurt Heinrich down, and and Rajon Rondo. Bulls fans were cheering for Kurt Heinrich. Fans are booing Rajon Rondo like crazy. And that's one of the reasons why Bulls fans hate Rajon Rondo. And not just that alone, but plus his character, known for a locker room cancer. But that's one of the main reasons. I should say that is one of the main reasons. And plus, remember, I believe when he fouled Brad Miller, I forgot which game was it, but it's the same series, 2009 NBA playoffs. And then I think it was knocked Brad Miller tooth out. I think it was maybe game 5 or game 6, I believe. And it was in Boston. The Bulls did lost. And then I think that was the beginning of that. And Bulls fan hate Rajon Rondo, and then they hate him more when he pushed Kurt Heinrich, caused a friction between him and Kurt Heinrich. Now, that's like like 7 years ago, I believe. 6 years ago. And now he's gonna play for the Chicago Bulls. That's gonna be weird. Honestly, it's gonna be weird watching him play for the Chicago Bulls, and more weird when you wear that Chicago Bulls uniform. Much weird. I mean, I prefer. You know what? I say this a few days ago when there's reports that when the first reports that Rajon Rondo meet the Chicago Bulls, that the only thing I will set Rajon Rondo come to Bulls is a 1 year deal or a 2 year deal, depending on the salary. But I prefer a 1 year deal. However, he signed a 2 year deal, but the second year contract is partial guarantee, so that's okay, I guess. But I prefer not to pick him up. But now what's the project? Now, let me ask you, Bulls fan, who do you think will start for the Chicago Bulls in opening night as of right now? Me, well, I would say this. I have a gut feeling, and this is my gut feeling is you probably see maybe Rajon Rondo start at the point guard, Jimmy Butler start at the shooting guard, then you got Robin Lopez start at the center. Those three players at the moment are definitely a lock. The question mark is the power forward and the small forward. Who's going to start those two? I have a gut turbo feeling that Mike Dudley Jr. may start at the three. Um, and possible Todd Gibson start at the power forward. I have that terrible gut feeling, and I want to start those two guys. And I like Todd Gibson, but I want to start those two guys. I think the best possible way to start, if I was Fred Hoiberg, if I was the head coach for the Chicago Bulls, I would start Rajon Rondo at the point guard. I will start the rookie. Yes, I will start the rookie, Denzel Valentine, at the shooting guard. And I'll move Jimmy Butler starting at the small forward. Then start Nikola. Nikola! Oh, sorry. Sorry, I know. Anyways, I will start Nico at the power forward and then Robin Lopez at the center. That way you'll have two shooters, a scorer, and a defensive big man who give defensive presence, and plus a point guard who get his teammates involved. That will actually make sense and help a little bit spacing. You got defensive players, you got shooters right there. That's probably will be only makes sense. I know Nico is not a great 3-point shooter, even though I believe he shoot about 38% behind the arc last season. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. So that's sort of progress. I know he's a big disappointment last season, but it's better to start him at the 4 with Rajon Rondo. He has to start at the 4 with Rajon Rondo. Then I prefer to start Denzel Washington at the 2, and then have guys like Doug McDermott play off the bench. Who else? Maybe if Jose Calderon's still on the team, probably playing as a backup point guard. I prefer play Grant as a backup point guard instead of Jose Calderon. That's and probably start Facilio as a backup big man, backup for Robin Lopez, and play Tosh Gibson, backing up Nicola if Tosh Gibson's still on the roster. That will be my rotation pretty much. As of right now, as the roster stand, even though it's still early, but as of right now, these are my rotation. I'll give you my starting. If I was the coach for the Chicago Bulls, these are my starting 5: Rajon Rondo at the point guard, Denzel Washington at the shooting guard, Jimmy Butler at the small forward, Nico at the power forward, and then Robert Lopez at the center position. And then the guys I will play with behind them, Doug McDermott. I will give him the 6-man role. Doug McDermott, Trevor Grant, Spencer Dinwiddie. That's 6, 7, 8. That's 8. And then I will play Todd's Kitchen 9, and possibly Fitzio. I will play a 10-man rotation, basically, for this coming new season as of right now. Those are my 10-man rotation. I will play it off the bench. Fitzio, I can't even say his name right now. Todd Gibson, Doug McDermott, Spencer D. Whittle, and Grant. Those are my 5 guys backing up those guys. But of course, I will mix between some of the bench and the starters. And the one thing you don't play, the one thing you don't do is don't play Doug McDermott and Nicola together. They both are terrible, terrible defense. And if you play those two together a long period of time, your defense is gonna get bad. It's gonna get bad. Heck, don't play Denzel Valentine, Doug McDermott, and Nicola at the same time. No, that's not a given. That's not a good idea. Denzel Washington. Excuse me. Denzel Valentine is not known as a good defender in college, and I can guarantee he's gonna struggle on the defense end in the professional level, especially the first season. I want to play Valentine, McDermott, and Nicola together. The only time I will play those three together, beside injuries, is if it's like a late game situation and you need some offensive spark. Then you put those together only for late games only. But you don't play all together or nor a combination at major of the game at all. Just only like in a late close game situation when you need offense. That's a little different story. Just mix your bench and starters. Have like Rajon Rondo, Jimmy Butler, Doug McDermott, and Taj and Robert Lopez, or Fitzio, or Rajon Rondo and Nicola and Denzel Valentine, or you get the point. You get the picture. That just mix bench and start. But the one thing don't do is don't play Doug McDermott and Nico together at the same time, unless it's a late close game situation. Same apply with Denzel Valentine. Don't play him, Doug, and Nico together at the same time, unless it's a late close game situation, because they're not a very good defenders. But anyways, I do think in the plus side, another plus side, I do think Rajon Rondo will give a lot of looks to Doug McDermott. This might benefit Doug McDermott, Nicola, and even the rookie Denzel Valentine. So that it may benefit them. So who knows? But they better be ready. They better hit their open shots. So we'll see what happens this season. Boy, what else? I gotta be honest. What else? I gotta be honest with you. I try to kill some more time and see, what else I want to talk about regarding Rajon Rondo, because I want to just focus on Rajon Rondo for this episode. My other episode, I will get into close to the end of this episode. I'm gonna say what I want to focus on to talk about the next couple and the next few episodes for this Bulls Talk podcast. What other? You know what? The Bulls have too many points. Actually, if you think about it, they can't right now, since Rajon Rondo go to the Chicago Bulls, they actually now have so many point guards. To be honest with you, you got Rajon Rondo, Jose Carroll, Jerry Grant, and Spencer D. Whittle. Even though you can, and I say this, you can maybe move D. Whittle at the 2 guard. Even though I'd like for him to focus on more off ball and play at the shooting guard position. That's what I'd like to focus more on. But I prefer. I'm curious if the Bulls will use the stretch perforation, I think that's what they call it, to let go Jose Carroll, which opens some cap space. I believe 5 million cap space. I'm no cap expert, so you have to ask people who are cap experts for it. Maybe Larry Kuhn or or someone else on Twitter or on the Real GM Chicago Bulls forum, there are posters over there are pretty some poster they have some posters over there on the realgm.com on the Chicago Bulls sub forum or any forums on that site are expert of salary caps, very expert of the CBA, that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind. Um, it will be interesting regarding how he can get along with the players, especially with Rondo and Jimmy Butler, Rondo and Fred Hoiberg. I still don't see this team make the playoffs. As a stand right now, I don't see them make the playoffs. However, with the pick of Rondo, I could see them maybe improvement of 10 more wins. I mentioned this on Twitter before the official agreement with the Bulls and Rondo come to terms that I only see the Bulls maybe win 20, 25 games for this coming season. Yes, that bad. So, and now with the pick of Rondo, now I will see maybe 30, 33 wins, maybe 34, and it'll still miss. I don't see them make the playoffs, despite the weak Eastern Conference. Plus, you gotta keep in mind there are other teams in the East may show improvement depending on what they do in the offseason. We already see some teams showing improvements. Teams like Orlando, somewhat Detroit Pistons, the Indiana Pacers, and we'll see what happens with this with Kevin Durant. Who knows? He may go to Boston. So we see about that. But either way, I don't see the Bulls make the playoffs despite picking up Rajon Rondo. As of right now, as of this time. But I could see the Bulls win with Rondo with 30, 33 wins, maybe 34 at most. Like I said, before we pick up Rondo, I only see the Bulls win 20, 25 games. Now now they pick him up, I see 30, 34 wins, and they're headed back to the lottery. A lot of Bulls fans want, especially for next year draft class, which is supposed to be a much more talented, more deep, strong draft class next year. So a lot of Bulls fans want the Bulls to, which I hate the word tank, but no need to tank when this team is not good on paper. So they're just not gonna be good enough to make the playoffs, even in the Eastern Conference. Despite picking up Rajon Rondo, of course, health will probably impact any teams, including Chicago, which the Chicago Bulls known for with over the last few years. So we'll see about that. I'm curious if they could allow Rajon Rondo wear a headband. If you don't know it, well, I'm pretty sure all the Bulls fans know that Sean Paxson have this rule that the players not allowed to wear a headband when you play for the Chicago Bulls, and he had that rule apply when used to be the baby Chicago Bulls, the baby Bulls era back then when Sean Paxson first took over, and that's understandable at the time, but now should have he should consider we change that. It's a stupid rule anyways. I always thought that rule was stupid, but rules are rules. But he should consider to change it and let his players allowed to wear a headband. There's nothing wrong with it. To be honest with you, I mean, it would be interesting. You never know. That could cause problems for little things like that. I mean, it happened with Ben Wallace years ago. Ben Wallace wear a headband one of those in the season, and then things go south in the back. I mean, not in the back. Things went haywire and went on the press. Crash with Scott Skiles when Scott Skiles was coaching for the Bulls. But then later on they allow him to wear a headband after that. But the relationship just not really good between Ben Wallace and the Bulls front office. And it's not just the headband; it was the beginning of it. But there are other stuff. So it'll be interesting with the Rajon Rondo and headband situation. It'll be interesting if they gotta let him wear it. And like I said, Sean Paxson and Gar Forman should change the rule because that rules shouldn't apply anymore, and it's stupid in the first place. Should allow the players wear the headbands, and so we'll see what happens. It's I gotta be honest with you. I'm not too high about this pickup, but it's kind of exciting to see with Rajon Rondo because he's a great playmaker. He has a great playmaker ability. Good. He's a very smart basketball player. He's not he's not a scorer. He can't shoot. He's not a good free thrower, which is bad for a guard. Much bad for a guard. And usually you have guards that are good free throws, but you have some guards, including Rajon Rondo, are not good shooting free throws. So that's gonna be an issue. But he's playmaking. It'll be interesting how this may benefit Doug McDermott, Denzel Valentine, and Nico, and even I will mention Tony Snell too. Benefit with Rajon Rondo's. It'll be interesting how Rajon Rondo and Jimmy Butler work together in the backcourt. So that's going to be interesting. Remember, Rajon Rondo have experience. He's been in the NBA for I believe 10 years. He have one championship ring. But he's known as a head case. He's a knucklehead after all. So you know what? I think before I end this episode, first I want to thank anyone who listened to my podcast. I appreciate it, and I'm grateful for it. So keep on listening to it. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Uh, subscribe. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and feel free to like or dislike the episode when I upload it. For the Bulls Talk podcast. Feedback, like I say this numerous times. I'm gonna keep saying it. Feedback is always welcome. So feel free to post a comment on the YouTube. Follow me on Twitter, which my Twitter is PDUH10. I'll say it again. PDUH10 is my Twitter username. So feel free to follow me on Twitter as well. My YouTube channel, just looking for, I think, All the Bulls Podcast or Bulls Talk. It should be on there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, now I want to talk about when's the next episode. I'm in either maybe later this week or next week. I'm hoping. If it's not next week, it might be in 2 weeks. Maybe that's a big maybe, but most likely it'll be most likely it'll be next week at the earliest. If it's not this week, you know, let me say this: the next episode either will be this week by the end of this week or next week. Okay. I wanted to talk about. Or have like a what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe like a tribute or memorial of Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, since those two have been playing for the Chicago Bulls for a long time. I want all the whole entire episode focus on that, the memory. Talk about what's your best memorable regarding those players when they play for the Bulls. A tribute of some sort. So that's what I want to focus on for the next episode for both Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah. It's kind of like a tribute type of thing. And also after that episode, I will try to put a highlights package with Derrick Rose Derek Rose and Choco Noah uploaded on my YouTube channel, which I will label highlights. I will try to put it together and upload it on YouTube for both, Choco Noah and Derek Rose. How many highlights? I don't know. Well, it'll be more than one. It'll be more than three too. Three. I will try to find many videos and then put together those highlights together and then upload it on YouTube. So keep an eye on it. Um, but yeah, for the next episode, what I'm aiming at is to focus on to talk about the best memorable of Derrick Rose, both Derrick Rose and Choki Noah, which both no longer playing for the Bulls and now they're playing for the New York Knicks. But since they're playing for the Bulls for a long time, giving their heart out, especially Choki Noah, Derrick Rose been true with all these injuries left and right. I want to talk about the most memorable. What's my favorite moment when they were playing for the Bulls? Like a tribute kind of thing. Um, that's for the next episode. And like I said, when for the next episode, maybe end of this week at the earliest, or next week at the latest. Uh, I am going to try to bring a guest for this podcast. I'm going to try to bring a guest for this podcast, but there's no guarantee for it. So we'll see what happens. If not, then of course I'll go solo like I've been doing the last 5 episodes of this since I started this podcast, the Bulls Talk podcast. That is. Now keep in mind again the following reminder. I'm not gonna upload this on SoundCloud. I will only upload it on YouTube. I will post a link once this uploaded on YouTube. I will post a link on Twitter and probably on realgm.com, which I post a link. So keep an eye on it. So I want to thank anyone who listened to this podcast. Feel free to post feedback, post a comment on my YouTube channel.